3 years, 3 harvests. 3 times he planted, and 3 times everything he planted was destroyed. First, the floods came, early, without warning, while the grain was still in the ground. He stood at the edge of his field and watched the water take it. The next year, drought. The earth cracked. The seedlings he had carried water to every morning for 2 months shriveled and turned to dust. The third year, locusts. A cloud of them that arrived in the afternoon and were gone by the following morning, leaving behind a silence so complete it felt like mockery. 3 years. And yet, this man, this farmer, could be found each morning before sunrise, already in his field, repairing, preparing, planting again. Not with the grim determination of someone who has decided to fight the universe, with something quieter and far more difficult to understand, with something that looked, to anyone watching, almost like peace. Guru Nanak saw this man from the road, stopped walking, and stayed for 3 days, because what this farmer had discovered, through years of loss and labor and honest reckoning with how much of life is not in our control, was something that most people spend their entire lives trying and failing to find. This is his story. Guru Nanak had walked thousands of miles by the time he arrived in the region of Punjab where Bhagirath's farm sat. He had spoken with kings who had every advantage and were miserable, with scholars who knew everything and understood very little, with wealthy merchants who could not sleep and warriors who had forgotten why they were fighting. He had also met, more rarely but memorably, people who had found something. Not wealth, not certainty, not the absence of suffering, something harder to name and far more valuable, a way of being in the world that did not depend on the world cooperating. He recognized it when he saw it, and he saw it in Bhagirath from the road before he even knew this man's name or his story. Something in the way the man moved through his damaged field, not defeated, not falsely cheerful, not performing resilience for an audience, just present, genuinely, quietly present. "Who is that man?" he asked Mardana. Mardana asked the next person they passed on the road. The person's face did something complicated when Bhagirath's name was mentioned. 3 bad harvests, the person said. 3 years, something comes and takes everything. And still he plants, and still he is... They searched for the word. Himself. What do the other farmers say about him? Some say he is blessed. Some say he is simple. Some say he is the only one who knows something the rest of them don't. Guru Nanak looked back at the field. "Let's find out which one," he said. To understand Bhagirath, you need to understand what was around him. His village had endured the same 3 years he had. The flooding had affected everyone. The drought had touched every field in the region. The locusts had not selected only his land. But what the 3 bad years had done to the other farmers, and this is the important part, was different from what it had done to Bhagirath. It had made many of them bitter, not inexplicably, understandably, justifiably, humanly bitter. There was a man named Harbans, 2 fields over, who had been transformed by the losses from a good-natured, open-handed farmer into someone his own children were careful around. He had stopped attending community meals. He had a particular look he wore now, a scanning, calculating look that was checking everything for the next source of disappointment. There was a woman named Surjit who had lost 2 harvests worth of work and now moved through every day with a low-level fury that had become so constant she no longer noticed it, though everyone around her did. These were not bad people. They were people who had experienced real losses and had responded in ways that were completely understandable. The question this story is really asking is, what was the difference? What did Bhagirath know or do or understand that meant 3 identical sets of circumstances produced a man who could still smile at sunrise? Guru Nanak and Mardana walked to the edge of Bhagirath's field. The farmer looked up. He was a lean man, the kind of lean that comes from actual physical work rather than from not eating enough. His face had the quality of someone who spends most of his time outside, weathered, open, with deep lines that suggested a face that had made a great many expressions over the years. He welcomed them the way people welcome guests when hospitality is not a performance but a reflex. Come in, sit, there is water, there is food, simple but real. They sat in the shade of a tree at the edge of his land, and Bhagirath brought them water and a handful of roasted chickpeas. Not much, but offered completely, without calculation. Guru Nanak looked at the damaged field. The floods this year were difficult, he said. Bhagirath nodded. Most of the grain is gone. We will manage the winter, but it will require care. The other farmers in the village are struggling, Guru Nanak said. Some are very angry. Yes, Bhagirath said simply, not dismissively, just, yes. Are you not angry? The farmer looked at the field for a moment, then back at his guests. I was, he said. The first year, when the floods came, I was very angry. I stood at the edge of the field and I shouted. I am not ashamed to say it, I shouted. At the sky, at the water, at whoever or whatever arranges these things. And then I noticed that the water did not respond to my shouting, Bhagirath said, something almost like humor in his voice. It continued at its own pace, and the shouting cost me energy I needed for the replanting. Guru Nanak smiled, but he pressed further. That is practical, he said, saving your energy. But the farmers who are angry, they know it is impractical too, and still they are angry. So what changed for you beyond the practical? Bhagirath was quiet for a moment. This was not a question he had been asked before. People in the village treated him as a fact of nature. That's just how Bhagirath is, without asking how he had become that way or what it cost him. He thought about it carefully. I plant every seed, he said finally, as carefully as if it will definitely grow. I water it, I watch it. I do everything in my power to help it become what it is supposed to become. He looked at the ground. But somewhere in the second year, after the drought took everything, I had to make a choice. I had to decide what I was actually responsible for. He looked up. I am responsible for the planting, for the effort, for showing up before sunrise and not leaving until the work is done, for giving every seed everything I know how to give it. He paused. I am not responsible for the rain. The words were simple. They sat in the shade between the three men like something solid. I am not responsible for the rain, he said again, quietly. And the locusts are not my failure, and the flood is not a message about my worth. These things are not in my column. They belong to something larger than me, to the Wahiguru's design, to the way the world moves, to forces that were here before my grandfather's grandfather and will be here after my great-grandchildren. He looked at Guru Nanak steadily. Once I understood what was in my column and what was not, the anger became unnecessary. It was anger at things that were never mine to control. Mardana, who had been listening quietly, spoke. That sounds like giving up, he said, not unkindly, genuinely. Bhagirath looked at him. Does it? He said. I have planted 3 crops in 3 years that have all been damaged. I will plant a 4th. I will wake up before sunrise. I will carry water and tend seedlings and repair fences and do every single thing I know how to do. He gestured at the field, at the work visible there, the careful preparation of damaged ground. Does that look like giving up? Mardana was quiet. There is a man in the village, Bhagirath said, who has decided that the losses are a personal injustice, that the universe owes him 3 good harvests now as payment for the 3 bad ones. He wakes up angry, he works angry, he eats angry, he sleeps angry. He paused. His fields are in worse condition than mine, because he is spending half his energy on the anger. But is his anger not understandable? Mardana asked. Of course, Bhagirath said. I am not criticizing him. I was him the first year. I understand every part of what he feels. He looked toward the road. What I am saying is simply that the anger did not bring the rain. It did not restore the grain. It did not change a single thing about what happened. And it cost him, it cost me the first year, energy and peace and mornings that could have been spent in the field or with my family. He looked back at his guests. So I made a choice, not a simple choice, a choice I have to make again every morning, but a choice. To accept what you cannot control, Guru Nanak said. To release it, Bhagirath said, which is not the same as accepting that it is fine. Losing 3 harvests is not fine, but it is real, and real things require the same response. Show up, do the work, and leave the rain to the one who manages the rain. That evening, Guru Nanak sat outside with Mardana in the cooling air. The stars were beginning. Bhagirath's house behind them was warm with lamplight and the sounds of his family. Mardana took up the rabab, and Guru Nanak composed a verse about the leaf that does not resist the wind, that moves with it completely, without breaking, without being destroyed. About the river that meets the stone and finds its way around it, not weakened by the obstacle, simply redirected. About the farmer who rises before sunrise, not because the harvest is guaranteed, but because the rising is in his column. He called it the Song of Hukam, the divine order. The understanding that there is a will in the way the world moves that is larger than any individual plan, and that the person who has made peace with this, who has accepted their part and released the rest, walks through even the worst years with something intact. Not happiness necessarily, not the absence of grief, but something underneath both, something that the floods and the drought and the locusts cannot reach. We live in a world that treats control as a virtue. Work harder, plan better, optimize every variable, force the outcome, refuse to accept failure. And there is real value in effort. Bhagirath is proof of that. He worked as hard as anyone. But he had learned something that most of us resist with everything we have. You are responsible for the effort, not the outcome. You plant the seed, that is yours. You tend it, that is yours. You give it everything you know how to give, that is yours. The rain is not yours. And the grief we carry over rain that did not come, over outcomes we gave everything to but could not control, that grief, held too long, becomes something else. It becomes a wall between us and the next seed that needs planting. Guru Nanak called this Hukam, the recognition that there is a design to existence larger than our intentions. This is not passivity. This is the most mature and most difficult form of strength. To do the work fully, and then, fully, to let the harvest be what it is. To separate what is yours from what was never yours to control, and to wake up the next morning and plant again. Think of something in your life right now that you are carrying, an outcome that did not go the way you planned despite your effort. Ask yourself honestly, did I plant the seed with full effort? If the answer is yes, truly yes, then your part is done. What you are carrying now is not responsibility. It is weight that was never yours to carry. What would it feel like, just today, to leave that weight at the edge of the field and walk back to the planting?